Welcome to the next panel, which is about what makes a good language. We're going to be talking about blockchain programming languages today. And we've got some awesome panelists today, so we'll kick off. If everyone wants to give a quick intro, who are you? What is your project? What are you doing?
Cool. Yeah, my name is Alejo. I just did the previous talk on proof of shit, and we're building a wallet and an AMM on Aptos, and then we're also deploying an ability to deploy with multiple virtual machines on Ethereum. First, we connect to Optimism, and then later Arbitrum and others.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, Dave. My name is Nick, the CEO of Fuel, and we're building the Rollup OS, and that's with the Fuel VM and Sway. In relation to this panel, I guess we're really repping Sway in this case. So, yeah, thanks everyone.
I'm Rushi, a movement, bringing the Move VM to Ethereum via Zero Knowledge Layer 2.
Yeah, I'm Sean. I work for Atzec, Maddiaa up there. And yeah, we're building a privacy first L2 on top of Ethereum, and I'm here representing Noir.
What is Noir?
So, thank you. So Noir is it's a programming language which is specifically targeted for building zero knowledge proofs. So it kind of has two backends on the back of it. It's got one which will compile the circuits, and one which will target our public execution environment, which just runs like a normal VM.
Awesome, thank you. Maybe do we want to intro all the languages as well? Move, Sway. If you guys want to.
I can start with Move. Move is built by the DM project and Facebook to essentially power their layer 1. It's spun off into Aptos and Sui, which were the two major layer 1s that kind of came out of the DM project. It's a language designed for speed and security, such that A stops around 90% of attack vectors with re-entry, integer overflows, as well as Move VM itself is parallelized. So think Solana VM and your favorite auditor combined into one.
Awesome. So Sway is a programming language we designed coming from the Ethereum ecosystem. So a lot of us were Solidity devs or Rust devs, and we felt that there was a need in the blockchain sort of space for a very flexible smart contract language that is both very safe, very performant, but brings a lot of the nice things of Rust and brings a lot of the nice things of Solidity into one language. So one that, we don't need to ever need another language again until at least AI takes over, and then, we'll have to deal with that as we deal with that. So, yep.
So Rushi did a good job entering Move. Also do a quick rep for Solana VM and WebAssembly. So with Solana VM, you can build with Rust. It's a low-level language. A lot of devs really like it. It is really hard to build with, but it allows for a lot more customization that some of these more established languages give you constraints on. And then WebAssembly is really nice. You can use, somewhat abstracted, but you can use different languages as well. Stylus is a good implementation of it. That's an Arbitrum project. But I think we're just trying to give choice to the developer to build with whatever they're used to and do it in a way that's relatively safe.
Awesome. Thank you guys for the intros. So this panel, we're talking about what makes a good language. So I want to start off talking about the best programming language. Best programming language known to man, no second best. I want you guys to all say something nice about Solidity and why, for all the fun, why has Solidity been so successful in the blockchain space?
Yeah, I can go first. So there's a huge network effect that comes with being first to market. We saw that with Bitcoin, we saw that with Ethereum, and it's just everybody builds, everybody piles on. Gavin and Vitalik really gave it a good shot. It's a really user-friendly in terms of looking like a TypeScript language, so it's not really difficult to adopt, and you can build this business logic that connects together. I guess we're not going into the bad stuff, right? So I'll just leave it there.
Just nice things.
Okay, I'll leave it there.
Yeah, I mean, so I've been using Solidity almost since it started. So I think 0.6 was when I started with it, and I'll say that I think back when Ethereum was just starting, nothing worked. It was really bad. It was a horrible experience. I was using Gavin's Aleth 0 client, which broke all the time and overflowed pretty much every single time I used it. But Solidity was actually an incredible sort of door opener to what the potential is of smart contracts, what the potential is for Ethereum, and before Solidity, it was just, I think they had some Lisp-like concept languages, and they were experimenting with some Python-like syntax, but basically Solidity brought, I would say, the potential for what was to come for Ethereum, and I think in that sense, it still holds a very, dear place in my soul, because as much as it had a lot of shortcomings with grammar and everything else, it had a lot of really nice things in the sense that it really conceptualized storage well, it conceptualized what a smart contract might feel like in a programming language, and for that, I think we could be forever grateful, basically.
Yeah, the same sentiment for me. Like, it slowly started smart contract programming, basically. It's like the father to all future languages that come up, so you have to pay homage and just respect what the Solidity and the EVM did. They brought programming to blockchains. And I think it's always going to have a place in the world. It's like, I call it legacy code, where it's always going to be used, respected. People are going to use Aave on EVM for a while. I don't expect that going away. But yeah, I think that the sentiment is like paying homage to the first smart contract language, which we will all respect and love.
Yeah, I think as a first effort, it was magnificent. Like, object-oriented approach is perfect in terms of you have a set of functions that operate over storage. Like, kind of everything kind of borrows that now. Yeah, and as the execution of the project, like, they've not had any magnificent compiler bugs that have led to loss of funds, so they've done a really good job in general, and like just like doing exactly what they need to do, honestly.
Shots fired at Viper. No. Well, I mean, Solidity's been so dominant. Like, it's there's been many projects that have kind of come and gone and tried to introduce more modern languages, stronger languages. We still see such dominant of the EVM and Solidity. All the projects on stage here represent projects that are, at least substantially bringing forward the idea of new languages, new virtual machines in crypto. What do you guys think will be the catalyst to, like, specifically from the language side, what's going to make someone say, like, hey, like, instead of using the tried and true Solidity, like, I want to do something in Sway, in Move, in Noir?
Having an application that goes crazy, like React and Vue got adopted because it was really easy to spin up websites with those frameworks. So my kind of analogy is like Move and Sway and these Rust-based languages are a framework for Rust. So when we have the first like Facebook on chain, we have the first gaming application on chain. These gaming developers realizing that Move is very easy to use. You have dynamic NFTs built into the platform. So once we get like an actual consumer app that goes pretty viral, that's going to bring developer adoption. Like Aave Uniswap went viral and there were big apps. That's why Solidity got adoption. The next cycle is going to be when you actually have an app go insane and then developers come to build on top of it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. The application layer needs to come. People need to use these products. Otherwise, we're just building, giant infrastructure Ponzi's. But yeah, another thing I'll add is the memes. The culture needs to be there. I think Solidity does a really good job. Vitalik with his cat and unicorn shirts, has driven a whole culture around this that we're now all, being brought together for. And at the end of the day, yeah, these things are, people are building these things. And if people like the culture, people like the memes, then they'll stick around.
I want to let you guys answer as well, but just to kind of jump in a little, like, you guys are saying, like, applications, like, yeah, good applications will lead to, an awesome application written in Move will get people, like, forking it and building more stuff in Move. But is there not kind of a catch-22 of, like, how are people going to build applications? Like, how do you get that flywheel spinning? How do you show them, like, if I'm building, I've got like a really cool idea for an application, why would I not just do it in Solidity?
Well, I think that comes to like DevRel. That's why DevRel is so important. Like doing these hackathons, showing off the use cases for the language, and I think like Apple we have done a great job with that. A, because of large treasuries, but B, because they're going to like APAC, which is kind of the biggest presence, and Korea has shown a great interest in Move. And these consumer like dev shops and consumer groups are actually building Move because they learned it from a hackathon, learned it through the Move book, and now they're building apps. So I think DevRel is the most important thing, and then DevRel is probably the #1 priority for any new framework and language.
I think for Sway, it comes from this really primal feeling you get when you use something like Solidity, and then you just look at what you've done and you go, man, I really just need to rewrite this in something better, And basically, there's this feeling when you write something in Solidity that, like, it works. It's probably going to be safe. Probably is going to do the job. I could probably ship this. But man, this doesn't feel good, you know? And I think with Sway, my hope is that we can create a solid enough language that we don't have to market it at all. That basically developers will feel the difference. They'll understand what the motivations were the second they start using it, and that it can market itself effectively just by word of mouth. So for me, my hope is that I don't need to go to assembly. I've done it many times. I don't want to. I would prefer if that was not the case. So for me, just, you know, the better we can make a language, the less we have to go to assembly, and the more safety we can probably confer from the language. So that would be my hope with Sway. Yeah.
We're kind of lucky that we have a whole new value prop that Noir provides, that you can actually build applications that don't exist on blockchains with Noir through the zero-knowledge proofs aspect of it. Like, Noir itself as a language isn't primarily a smart contract language. We've built a framework on top of Noir, Atzec Noir, that turns it into that. So it's like you can write applications for literally, for your Web 2 stuff if you want to do provable compute with Noir, and bring those stuff to bring that to our blockchain if you want to. So there's a lot of new stuff that it enables as being primarily a circuit language that doesn't have the execution environment built into it. So yeah, it's not just stuff that, you know, it's a reskin of Solidity that looks different, has nicer expressiveness or something. It's like, actually, you can do new stuff with it. I think it's kind of our, like, Noir can live on doing its own thing even without blockchains.
I have a little bit of a hot take. So for application-specific languages, I think it makes a lot of sense. You know, you're building these circuits, and it's like very complex to do with something else. But who cares if it's only one application, right? Like, if it works and it can compose with other applications, just like, you know, build with whatever language you want. Like, why do we have to be vendor locked into one?
Yeah, I think that's like a motivations question, at least for us. So I would like to just use Rust and C to target the Fuel VM, for example, but I've kind of tried some of that, and it was horrible. Because basically, like, C and Rust are systems languages. Like, inherently, those engineers spend thousands, hundreds of thousands of hours targeting CPUs and hardware, not blockchains. So what's strange is you would think, well, blockchains, the VM feels like a similar target to any hardware. Why not just use a systems language? But it's inherently a motivations thing, because those languages were designed for something else, quite frankly. And when you try to hit a blockchain with a systems language, you can do it. It just doesn't feel good. And it never felt good when Gavin was trying to do it with the EVM, and that had its own constraints, all the way over to now. So for us, like, it's very painful to build a language, and it's very, very painful to go through this process. But you know, we have the means to be able to attempt it, and I think for us, it's like we want to do it, if anything, because we have the real motivation to do it, because we need to do it for this particular case. You know, yeah, at least until AI can machine learn 95% of it, and then I can just do it in an essay or something instead of instead of programming.
Some people are masochists. They like the pain, chewing glass.
Yeah, we like the pain. We like the pain. It's fine.
I mean, Nick, you brought up you know, Rust, and obviously Rust is kind of like, outside of Solidity, it's probably like the most prominent language across the blockchain ecosystem. You know, a lot of clients are built with it. A lot of on-chain code as well. A lot of virtual machines, you know, are targeted by Rust. Well, first of all, I'd love to kind of get everyone's thoughts on just like why does crypto love Rust so much? Why has that become such a key part of the space when it's, you know, not quite as prominent in other industries, other ecosystems?
Rust is the fastest growing language, I think. I think it's just, you know, I mean, it does feel good. It's you know, static type language. It's has the concurrency built in, so, you know, all this stuff people really like. But I believe outside of crypto, Rust is like one of the fastest growing languages, you know, surpassing C. So I think just a lot of people entering the space are used to it. They really like it. It's kind of like one of those cool things where if you're a dev and you know Rust, then you're a cool guy. But yeah.
Yeah, I think the Rust-based languages and Rust itself is a very fast language, so you can build like high-performance applications. We're seeing that in AI especially. I think Google just announced that they're switching to Rust-based for their LLMs. Don't quote me on that, but even AI, you want quicker time. So like these frameworks are being built to Rust. In blockchains, you want high throughput, you want parallelization, and that's pretty much only possible. I think Mana is doing it with Go, but it's obviously they took a lot of effort with that. Rust is pretty much the fastest language.
On top of speed, which is a nice to have in this case, it's really the guarantees that you can get from the borrow checker. If you're trying to build mission critical software, which highly financialized applications absolutely are, you really want to not have to deal with memory issues and not deal with all of those other things. And Rust has been very carefully designed to remove those headaches from the developer. So, I mean, like getting a call in the middle of the night that your whole blockchain client is blown up because of some hard to find memory issue versus not having to worry about that is a lot nicer.
Yeah, like I'll say something that felt terrifying in early Ethereum was Aleth0. So Gavin wrote a lot of it in C++. And quite frankly, this thing, it overflowed probably every release somewhere. Like I got it to overflow pretty much every time. I was barely using it, by the way. I was just like writing tic-tac-toe and stuff, and it would overflow. So the fact is that like C++ was, I think, an incredible sort of addition to C and kind of moving computing forward that way. But I think that Rust was really called for after C++ and all the history there, really because of things like memory safety and things like ensuring that you have a lot of guarantees at compile time in a very noisy environment in terms of like, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, because humans make a lot of mistakes. And I think its type system is incredibly complex and sophisticated. Its macro language is incredibly sophisticated. So there's a lot of really amazing things that Rust brings to the table that I think are like, they're really wild. That being said, running effectively a Rust shop now for many years, I have come to learn, I'll admit, I've come to learn there are some nice little benefits about other languages. I like Go and these other things now, only because while I love Rust, Rust is very syntactically noisy, and there's a lot of cognitive load with Rust. And I think that Go and other languages like Zig, for example, have a lot less cognitive load. And with Sway, because we're Rustish, and it's same with Move as well, I think because it's Rustish, and even in Noir, it's Rustish, but not all the pain of Rust. It feels nice. But like, if we really were to throw in the pain of Rust into these languages, I bet we wouldn't get as much adoption, even despite how fast Rust is growing. So for me, I've got my I'm sort of a little more balanced. I'm not total Rust maxi anymore, but I really do appreciate it. I think it's becoming really a standard thing.
I mean, the playbook is React and Vue for JavaScript. Running JavaScript's a pain. Writing Rust is a pain, but the frameworks to build on top of it make it a lot easier. To build a website in React and Vue, it's pretty easy, and that's why everyone loves React. Same thing with Move, Sway, and these Rust-based frameworks, and Noir. These Rust-based frameworks make using Rust and the benefits of Rust a lot easier. You're abstracting away a lot of the bullshit you have to deal with Rust.
But would you call Move like a? Is that what you're referring to with like Move as like the React kind of?
Yeah, it's Move is like a framework, I would say, and then Sway is probably a framework in this case.
Yeah, definitely. It feels like Rust. There's a lot of syntactical similarities. There's a lot of ways and assumptions about how the language works, but it's not Rust. It is something different. And I think, to be honest, that's actually great because I don't want to introduce all the things of Rust into stuff. I wouldn't want to see that happen for Move or Noir, quite frankly, because otherwise, like, I just feel like, okay, well now, like, this isn't as fun, because systems languages require so much more stuff, and so there's so many more constraints. So I think it's really nice to have these languages like this. Yeah.
Sorry, kind of question. Do you feel like some of these constraints maybe limit the creativity of what can be built?
Yeah. So I think the way I can explain it is like this, right? JavaScript is a real adventure, and most of my professional life has been dealing with JavaScript. All the way, I know, from like ECMAScript 3, I think. So almost since the beginning of the pain, And basically, the thing is, JavaScript, well, it definitely has its flaws, and it's got many. What it does have is something that I really like, which is it's a creativity enabler. Like, a lot of people pick it up, humans pick it up really quickly. And it's messy, and it doesn't do anything. It's very unsafe, and it's very hard to use in the sense of like a production environment. But like to create things, it's fantastic. It's very flexible and very accepting of all your problems. And so there's something to be said for languages that don't throw so much structure and noise in your face. And so JavaScript to me is one of those languages. So in my sense, JavaScript's also very beautiful in the sense that like humans have been able to create so much with it despite all of its flaws. So basically, like you can't go too far either way, I think. But what's nice about Rust is if you're trying to, again, launch a rocket ship, you probably want to lean on memory safety in Rust and not even wing it with Zig, even though I am starting to really like Zig. Yeah.
On the point of creativity, I think the concept is multiple frameworks is actually complementary. For example, like if you're having Sway, having Noir, having Move, like there's different use cases. If you want to write ZK circuits, you probably write Sway, you probably write Noir. And if you're looking for security, I think that's a Move case. So this creativity actually comes from these multiple frameworks launching within the Rust ecosystem. So we have like different use cases for different frameworks. You have Cairo, which is also known as ZK, kind of thing Rust-based. So the creativity isn't coming from one specific language taking all ownership. I would argue that like the frameworks are actually complementary. So I wouldn't say even feel as a competitor to Move. I would say it's actually complementary to have that.
And I think as well, there's what's nice about what's happening is as much as there's a lot of similarities, it's also that languages are being developed for the different nature and the different kinds of things. Like for example, our language, at least not right now, would not be able to deal with all the things that Noir deals with in terms of like building circuits and all the different kinds of constraints and expressiveness that you need there. So I think, and it's the same thing with Move. Like there's a lot of little things with Move that are like quite different from how our virtual machine works. So I think that what's nice is at least now people are doing more DSLs and more stuff because it is actually a really nice pattern. It's really, really great for the dev, so long as you can get the tooling right and so long as it, you create the right kind of experience for the developer. Yeah.
You guys have been touching on kind of how it's nice that we've got a lot of different experimentation building these DSLs that kind of have different features, different functionalities. Is there a risk that we kind of that leads to a lot of fragmentation, that you have to rebuild libraries and tooling and things like that, whereas like there's a lot of VMs that are just kind of targeted by Rust. You've got Solana, Arbitrum, Stylus, Cosmosm. Would that be kind of an argument for just like low-level Rust instead of like these DSLs?
So I break down fragmentation in two categories. There's developer fragmentation and there's liquidity fragmentation. Liquidity fragmentation is problematic because in this world we have all these rollups. It's like predatory capital. I think that's a separate topic when you're asking. Developer fragmentation I would consider actually good because it creates competition in the market. You'll have all these different frameworks, and all these like libraries come up, and the ones that get actually traction are the ones that are adopted. We saw that with JavaScript, you had like 18 billion different frameworks, but then React, Vue, Angular 1, right? Same thing that's going to happen with these Rust-based frameworks. You're going to have all these like, different infrastructure and all these different VMs, but then the consumer app and the apps that actually win prove the usefulness of the VM, and then in the end game, it's only one or two or three VMs that actually exist.
I would say that fragmentation goes both ways. It's both. Sometimes it can be bad, yes, when you have devs that will only know one thing, not the other, and it's a professional risk for them in their career to like spend time to learn one, not the other. But in the same sense, I don't actually think all of that's actually real. I think a lot of devs have a lot of time to experiment and create and try new things, and the ones that are really curious will always try different things and new things. And I think as Rushi said, the experimentation is great because it creates competition. It allows us to see better ways that the market can address the problems that are going on. And I think that in this sense, having a market of languages right now for these very new environments is exactly the kind of thing that you want. Like, if we were all using the same language and the same approach for all of this, the experience would probably be horrible. Like, if we were all forced to use C for everything, it would be like really shitty. So I think this is actually really great in every sense. Yeah.
Also, great thing, the fragmentation, there's like 500 developers. So like you're fragmenting like 5 developers. It's not actually like fragmentation. It's like 5 developers here, 5 developers there. We're all optimizing for like the millions of developers. So in this era of smart contract programming languages, fragmentation is actually productive. Fragmentation, if there is fragmentation when there's millions of developers, then maybe you can contend it's problematic. But at that point, you will have VMs that actually want out. So I don't really care about fragmenting 5 devs.
Yeah, I think maybe repositioning fragmentation is just diversity. Like, diversity is good. We don't want to be vendor locked into any one particular thing, and let's just figure out the aggregation layer. How do we make sure that all these things are composable so that not everything's like fragmented? Like
Polygon shill.
That was a Polygon shill somehow.
just validity
Not
proves.
100%.
Validity proves.
Yeah.
Validity proves.
I mean, I could see Noir as like a tool for those Rust developers that like you couldn't create very efficient circuits with tiny proofs using Rust toolchain. You need an entirely different toolchain that we have, like our Seer one, to enable that. And like anybody who knows Rust or honestly any of the other languages here can probably just get up and running with Noir in 10 minutes, and then they have this entirely new toolkit available to them. So ours is less that like we wanted a new language front end, we needed an entire engine. And like bolting it onto Rust, like Rust is, although it's a very good project, has an ungodly amount of tech debt, that kind of just, it's actually easier to just make a front end that looks like it and go from there.
Start fresh.
Yeah, if you know Rust, you know every single one of these languages, pretty much.
Which is a great thing.
Yeah. I mean, one thing to kind of play on what you're saying, Rushi, like, there's still not a lot of blockchain devs right now. You know, we're fighting over the small group, but really what we actually want to do is be growing the pie, to be bringing new people in. You know, there is kind of a bit of a balance, I think you guys would say, between, Nick was talking about how JavaScript is like, yeah, that's not amazing language, but it's so accessible. You've been able to bring a lot of people in. On the other hand, that's like, people talk about writing smart contracts as like you're like coding for the space shuttle, because you know when you have millions of dollars in DVL and it's immutable, you can't always just kind of like swap things out. You need to really have a level of security. How do you guys think of like that balance, that trade-off of like some of the strongest, most secure languages might not be the ones that are easy to like bring in new developers for?
Yeah, I mean, I think just because there's not just millions but billions of dollars at stake, and in the future trillions, like we should be prioritizing security. I mean, I think that's the biggest counter argument to JavaScript. Like you were saying, when you're building not JavaScript, Solidity. Freudian slip. Yeah, I mean, when you're building with Solidity, it just feels janky. Like, why do you have to use these proxy contracts to upgrade? Why do you have to pull third-party libraries for full mode verification? It just doesn't feel right. Whereas like something like Move, it's like just feels nice.
Yeah, I think I think designing sort of now with the knowledge of what we have from Solidity, it's very easy in retrospect to look at these languages and kind of be like, okay, yeah, this obviously there's some design patterns here that are like very, very janky and don't make sense, and that's a byproduct of the Ethereum virtual machine and also just Solidity as an attempt to a language. But I'll also say that like Solidity itself, like while it's had its problems, it's also been incredibly reliable for what it does, like, and for what it is. Basically, almost not having any vulnerabilities and shipping safe smart contracts. So you can shit on it all you want, you can critique it all you want, but for its purpose, whether with its pros and cons, it has been an incredible rock. And if we had more vulnerabilities at the Solidity level, I don't think the community would be as successful as it is now, or wouldn't be anywhere where it's at now. So like we've been relying on that, and it's been working really well. So I think with Sway, and I would hope with Move and Noir and any new language that comes up, that's basically the bar now. So it's a very high bar actually to not have any bugs. So yeah, that's of note and concern. Completely right.
Except the DAO hack, right?
But the DAO hack was purely a conceptual issue, though. I mean, really, quite frankly, I think the devs didn't have any conception of reentrancy. The only person who really knew was Gavin, and Gavin was not checking the code of the DAO. So basically, like, and I mean knew in the sense of could understand that this was an obvious feature and bug of the EVM, you could say. So
More of a bug of the VM than the language, because
yeah,
reentrancy is still an issue. Like it's not like Solidity has fixed it.
Well, technically, I would say reentrancy is a feature. It's just a feature that no one wants to use, and should be restrained in most cases. Yeah,
Very true.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're out of time. Yeah, okay. We are running out of time, but I want to thank you guys so much. No time for questions, do we? No? Yeah, we have a quick, is there anyone in the audience that has any questions about languages? We got one up here.
Yeah, I guess this is anyone or all of you could answer this, but do you think there's a trade-off to be made in designing a language where if you target DevX too much, you lose something in the language itself. Like, I'm a developer, but I feel like it can't just be developers all the way down. At some point, there's just people using the software, and we should be optimizing for that usage. So yeah, just wondering what you guys think about that.
So you're saying, is there too much DevX? Is that a?
Yeah, is it possible to over-optimize for DevX? And if so, do you lose something in the original intent of the language, maybe?
I think it's possible. Yeah, by the way, the Nick who asked the question here might be the only person on planet Earth, this is how early we are, who both knows Sway and Noir. So you're looking at one of the only people on planet Earth that probably knows both of those languages.
Raul from Atzec too.
Yeah. No, and Raul from Atzec, yeah. But I don't know. I think that's maybe it's an odd question. I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe you can overdo it. Maybe you can make the DevX too intense and then lose maybe some of the original intent of the language. Like, I know Rust, when it started, was very different than the Rust we see now. Like, the intent of Rust being this language that can do a lot but be very structured ended up being like that plus a lot of syntactical noise and like a lot of additional concepts. And like, so I think you can kind of lose it. And I think you have to be very careful. Like, even introducing metaprogramming into Rust is such an overhead conceptually that like the fact that Zig doesn't do that to me is like great, because now I can really like see the difference, and that might be over DevX, you could say. So it's possible, I think. Maybe even metaprogramming is a good example, maybe, yeah.
Would something you're referring to here be like prohibiting use of inline assembly as a DevX feature rather than just enabling those hookins? Is that like what you're getting to as
Yeah,
well?
I guess that could be part of it. I think like where this idea comes from for me is like the old Rich Hickey talk on like simple made easy, whereas like devs should be able to handle a little bit of difficulty, because that's not the end. Like, that's really not the end use of the software. Eventually, it's like users actually using this. So, yeah, cool. Thanks.
Anything else?
Any other questions?
Awesome. I think we got one.
One more.
I think we've got one or two. Yeah.
Two.
Hey guys, great panel. Quick question for any or all of you. I'm looking for a soundbite for my Twitter. If you had to basically like just pick one or two things to kind of answer that question, would you say it's a language that optimizes for the strength of each individual VM while remaining composable? Would that be the right way to think about it?
I mean, maybe a simple way to put it would be, if you're targeting Move, you're targeting Atzec's environment, you're targeting the Fuel VM. Maybe what you want to say is you want to have the right tool for the job. So maybe that's the right way to put it. And I would argue that using anything other than what was intended by the developers, at least at this stage, might not be the right tool for the job. So maybe that's a way to put it. And while remaining composable, maybe not right now, maybe in the future though. I think it's very possible, yeah. That would be the way I would answer that. I don't know. If you guys have an idea.
Okay. Great, thank you.
One more.
Kind of a chaotic, good clickbait question, but if you knew, let's say, if in 20 years, like all of your projects are succeeding, flourishing, and doing great, basically like cooperation issue at the moment versus like long-term vision. It seems like maybe long-term, again, like 30 years, whatever, 20, like having a unified set of libraries and toolkits, let's say in Rust, instead of creating new languages, maybe it would be better, maybe. Do you think it's a coordination issue at the moment, DevX issue, and if you had economic security of your projects, do you think you could just go and do it in Rust right now, or what are your concerns?
I think there could be a lot of standardization at the front end level, because most of the time application developers' intentions are identical for all of our stuff. So yeah, maybe a missed boat there, that we all have our own front ends that almost do the same thing. Yeah, but I think in the long run, all of these things, they're all experiments going slightly different ways. So I think it's very valuable work that all of them are being done in parallel, and that the market will pick a winner.
Yeah, I would say, again, you can use Rust right now. You can rejig LLVM, and you can target all of these environments. So you can do that.
It's just
That's
Solana
fine.
VM. Solana is LLVM.
Yeah, and the Solana VM, basically is just like BPF, and you're just targeting the environment, whatever it is. And so, effectively, this is done right now. The thing is, I'd encourage you to do it and use it because feels awful. Like when you have to use Rust with no standard, right? It just sucks. It's not the way that the language is, it's not the full capability of the language, right? And then you need to band-aid everything. So everything needs to be annotated and restrained. And then by that point, you might as well have just done something to like target that virtual machine the way that you would want it to be. And so you kind of always have this thing where like Rust is that flexible, it can do it. And C can do it too. Actually, any LLVM target to our stuff could work. But there's a lot of trade-offs with that. And if you ask auditors too, it's very messy. It's not ideal. So I would just say that there's a lot of subtleties, and I think over time, everything will just aggregate into something. So it'll just naturally happen. And but right now, as these are experiments effectively into what direction crypto should go and the market should take, we just don't know. So it's probably better to have a DSL that does the job than using things that aren't built for that right now. But maybe in the future, all that changes. So, yeah.
Anything else? Awesome.
I think that's it.
That's it. Cool. Thank you guys so much. Thanks to all the panelists.
Thanks, everyone.